Welcome back, guys. Episode 37. And what we're going to do this week is we're going to preview, by far, this week, the biggest matchup in all of college football. It's one that people circle on the calendar usually every year, especially since Franklin has gotten to Penn State and they've been up at that top elite class of college football. You know, we got Ohio State going in for a noon kick at Penn State in one of the toughest places to play in the country. You know, Mitch, why don't we start with this? Like, who wins the game, Doc? Who do you think wins the game?
Yeah, just my gut feeling. I think Ohio State walks out with it. I think the way that Penn State stays in it is they got to turn Ohio State over early, keep that crowd into it. If they can keep it a one-score game going into halftime, I think it gets interesting. But if it's anything more than that, I think Ohio State runs away with it. What about you?
Give me a score.
At the end of the game?
Yeah.
Because I think the environment is going to be big, and honestly, if they play Prabula, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
I think you got to give him a little bit of a spark. I think he can get a little greasy on Saturday. I think he can get a little sneaky, and I think they're going to keep it really close. I'm going to go like 24-21. I'm going to go 24-21. Yeah, I think it's going to be really tight.
I love it. I'm in a very similar boat. I'm going 24-14.
Okay.
24-14. I think we're probably looking at it in like very similar like style of play and very similar game. I think, something to start with as we get going into this is like, I think home field advantage like at Penn State is obviously a major factor in the game, which is crazy because we just both said that Ohio State's going to win. Mitch said by 3, I said by 10. Which tells you how much we think Ohio State has an advantage here in this football game. But talk about like Penn State, that advantage, what that does just in terms of the overall way that the game goes. Like how does that home field advantage affect the game specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken 3 to 7 points off your total. You're going to have 3 or 4 drives that start 1st and 15 because of a false start, and that's a big deal. In a tight football game, that's a very big deal. I remember we played at Clemson, and the first quarter, we had 3 false starts, and we could not do shit on offense because we couldn't get in front of the sticks. And then the second quarters 2, 3, and 4, we scored all of our points, and if we had just a decent first quarter, we would have won. So it just makes a big difference. I think it really does take at least one score off the scoreboard for a team when you're playing on the road in an environment like that.
And to that exact point, another a fairly more detailed way of describing exactly what Mitch just said to me is it really benefits the home defense.
Yeah.
It really benefits the home defense. And in this type of game, I think you felt that with Oregon's defense against Ohio State a little bit. I think you'll feel it again with Penn State's defense. And I think Penn State needs that. Because I think the better roster is Ohio State. I don't think it's a huge gap, but I think where the gaps present themselves is I trust the Ohio State quarterback situation a lot more than I trust Penn State's. And so that's why I'm glad that this game's at home. Because I think Penn State's defense will have an advantage. The physicality up front for Penn State's offensive line, I think gets a little bit more neutral than the Ohio State kind of clear edge there because Penn State has 2 of the best running backs in the country.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the quarterback position is obviously going to dictate a big part of this football game. And I think a lot of people, as they heard you just say that you think Bo Preview potentially, or Prabula, he potentially offers more of an advantage than Drew Allar. People are listening to you right now going, what are you talking about, bro? Drew Allar has played for 2.5 seasons. How the hell could you say that this guy who's barely played offers more of an advantage? Go ahead and get into that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, in the games that he's come in, he's played really well, and he's a winner. He's a proven winner. I think that I don't know how much of a gap there is throwing the ball wise between the two, and I think he's a really good athlete. And that is how Penn State is going to win this football game is he's going to have to make plays with his feet, and I'm not comparing the two, but it's going to be like a Johnny football versus Alabama type night. Something magical is going to have to happen for them to win, and it's going to take a quarterback that's run around making plays. And I think that Bo gives him the best shot to do that. But in my opinion, and I want to talk to you about this. I want to hear your opinion on this. I think the biggest hurdle for Penn State is just this stigma that
Yeah.
they haven't won a big game in Franklin's time there. I think they beat Ohio State once. I don't think they beat Michigan. Maybe they have, but on like a down year. So, what do you think is harder for Penn State this week? Ohio State or the stigma of not winning a big game?
Dude, I think the stigma. I think the
Yeah,
stigma for
I do
sure.
too.
Yeah, I think the stigma for sure. I'll say that Franklin is. I played for him, guys. Right? I played for him, and I was a captain for his football team. So I was having private meetings with him all the time. Like I know the way that this man moves. I know the way that his team will be fucking ready to play. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
right now. But if I were to cut his knees out from under him in any way as a coach, is that he is such a damn good football coach that he knows the percentages of everything to a fault. And that in these big games, we're excited as fuck, but we're also on edge. Like we're on edge. And so when I feel that my head coach is emphasizing turnover margin a lot and emphasizing decision making and all of that, it's like I'm already on my own ass for this
yeah,
type of football game. Like
100%.
you're on my ass too, which is great coaching. Like great coaches do that. Like Nick Saban does that. But I think there's a little bit more letting go of the rope from Nick Saban that a lot of people don't understand. Is like
Yep.
Nick was talking on Pat McAfee the other day, and he's like, after my team lost a game, I threw my arm around him, dude, and I loved him up. If my team won, I was an asshole, like after the game. Like he understands that. So with a quarterback, for instance, is like Nick Saban would already know this dude's in a place where he's putting a lot of pressure on himself already.
Yeah,
Like, so I'm going to kind of give him more freedom, more
yeah,
comfort,
yeah,
because I know that if I take him to a place of freedom and comfort, he's going to be where I want him to be.
yep,
As opposed to if I tell him where I want him to be, he could be in that high stress zone.
exactly.
And that's
100%.
coming back full circle. I think there's a little bit of it with Franklin for sure, and like the way
Yep.
he is. But I also think like he's gonna know that too. So he may like approach this game a little differently from that standpoint than he has
Yeah,
in the past. You know, a classic just locker room conversation of like, fuck what everybody says about me, guys. And in the past, I've probably put you guys in some tougher situations. So today, I want to see you let your nuts hang. Like he may do a little bit of that, right?
yeah,
But I think it goes back into the quarterback situation again. Is you said that Bo might offer them more of an opportunity to win this football game. I think Drew has been significantly conditioned to play Franklin's way of football.
exactly. That's kind of what I mean.
I think with that, as I watch Drew, what I have like not loved, even though he's a good quarterback, guys, he's a good quarterback. He doesn't attack you down the field and he doesn't attack you in the intermediate passing game. And if you're 6'5", 240 and you're not going to run, you need to attack a defense with your arm.
Yeah.
And I haven't felt that aggression from him in the passing game. So now when you think of Ohio State, if I'm playing against Drew Allar, fuck the number at quarterback. I'm playing too high unless I'm bringing pressure.
Yeah,
And I'm going to force him to throw the ball into tight windows and play. Because in a game of this magnitude, I like to think that usually at the line of scrimmage, dude, when you have two really good teams like this, it's not going to be a significant advantage either way.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and so because of that, like, Bo being able to offer you a little bit less conditioning, so a little
yeah,
bit
exactly.
more just I'm willing to fucking do it because no one expects
Yeah.
shit of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then also being able to beat you with his legs, it changes the way that Ohio State schematically will play some of their defense. So I think like we've started off super hot, like we've completely neglected Will Howard here.
Yeah.
Like I think both of us feel the same way. If you're giving an advantage in the game at the quarterback position, we're both going Ohio State. Like, why are you going Ohio State in that comparison?
Yeah, I mean, he's played in a ton of big games, and he's played really well in those big games. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's gonna, if Penn State forces him to run the ball, I'm sure they're gonna play a lot of single high coverage and force him to make throws man to man. Ohio State's got dudes on the outside to make plays for him, and he's incredibly accurate. And if they stay in a too high shell and force them to run the ball, they're going to run for 400 yards because they got the two best running backs in the country. So I just think if they put the game in Will Howard's hands, which I'm sure as a defensive coordinator I would do that instead of letting them run all over me, he's more than capable of being accurate on every throw and pushing the ball down the field and hitting his guys and making good decisions and running when he has to. So he's a good ball player. I mean, he's super, super solid, and he's got guys around him.
And I think you saw it when he played Oregon. It's like Ohio State didn't lose against Oregon because Will Howard didn't play the way he needed to play to win the game.
Exactly.
They just lost the game.
It was a great football game. Yeah,
so in terms of showing up, like, that dude had a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Like, you're the starter at Ohio State. You've been paid to come in here and win these games. And, like, yeah, they lost, but that's what we talked about after that game was, like, they lost by 1, I think. They had an offensive PI to take them out of field goal range to win that game. Yeah. And if that were played in the shoe, it's probably a different outcome. Like, if that's played squared up the same way. Yeah. So trust Ohio State's quarterback to give more of an advantage to them. Now, here's one of the things that, like, I think you would have had to play for a while to, like, really feel and know this, or coach for a while, and you and I have done both. Talk to me about this, Mitch. Last week, Penn State went into a game against Wisconsin, and they got punched in the mouth early, and their quarterback went down, and then they separated themselves, and they won the game comfortably by 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Okay. Ohio State played Nebraska at home and struggled. Like, there was a point in that game in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, where it was like, holy shit, if Nebraska puts a drive together right here, Nebraska walks out of the shoe with a dub.
Yeah. Okay,
well, Austyn, what does that mean? Like, Penn State played better last week and Ohio State didn't. Get into it, Mitch. Like, and I'll say it this way, just tee it up for you this way. Penn State overachieved last week.
Yeah.
And Ohio State underachieved last week.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that dynamic.
Yeah, so it can go one of two ways. It can be a positive for Penn State because they're going to have confidence. And it just depends what you think is the more important thing. Or it lights a fire under Ohio State to show that they are mortal and they got to get their shit together and play their best football to beat Penn State. In my opinion, it's advantage Ohio State in this situation. I think that they attack practice this week with a little bit more intensity. And you know what? I don't know if that is. I don't know. I don't know if that's a positive because we just talked about the whole Nick Saban thing. Is those guys probably are putting a lot of pressure on themselves, and if Ryan Day is ripping them for last week and it carries over to this week, does that help them? I don't know. Honestly, I'm gonna change what I just said. I think it's advantage Penn State here because if they got to go in with some belief and go in with some confidence, and feeling themselves, I'd rather be. Yeah, I think it helps Penn State more. I don't know. I kind of went a full 360 there or 180, but
I mean, I like your full 180 because I love it anytime that you and I disagree because it's fun to talk about it. Like, the reason that I disagree is going into the season this year. Like, if there was a unit in college football that was the best unit on paper in the country going into this season, it was Ohio State's defense.
Yeah,
and they're still playing damn good defense. But why do they have that narrative? Dude, going into the season, they were talking about 6 or 7 first, second round picks on that defense. Guys who have played, guys who decided to come back, and they still have other dudes that are going to get drafted on that defense too. Yeah. So the narrative is kind of misleading on Ohio State's defense because they're playing well. They just got beat on a few deep balls early in the game against Oregon, and that changed the whole complexion of what they did defensively. I don't think Penn State has the weapons or the quarterback to beat Ohio State down the field consistently.
I agree.
Like, because of that, I think you're going to see a bunch of dogs, a bunch of first and second round dogs for Ohio State who feel disrespected. And I think in these types of games, these are the games that Ohio State lives for. And to be in a position defensively, it's a massive advantage to me when you do have urgency. The shit that we were talking about going into the game, we were speaking very much through an offensive lens, before this.
Yeah, no,
Like,
100%.
I think defensively, like, you got a bunch of first round picks out there who feel like the country is thinking that they're underachieving this season,
No,
and
you're
they
right.
have an opportunity against a B- quarterback, regardless of who it is, to play on that stage in that situation. Dude, there's a reason that I said I only think Penn State scores 14 points.
No, you make a good point.
I think we walk out of that game and we go, the offenses were all right because Penn State has a really good defense and they're at home with that crowd and all of that. So as much as we trust Will Howard, I don't think it's going to be a big explosive day for Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be like methodical drives and threes and then your occasional 7. And like, I think in a threes, occasional 7 type of game, like, I think Ohio State has the opportunity to come into this game and go, you guys are one-dimensional. We don't think you're going to beat us in the passing game. So we're going to load up the box, play a little bit more loose with our man coverage. We'll let you take hitches up and down the field because they'll be contested and beat the best unit in college football, even though people don't think that right now.
You make a good point. You make a very good point.
That's kind of what I feel. But even if my point was good enough to kind of sway you a little bit, kind of go back to talking about what you were talking about, though, just in terms of like if you were to say why Penn State had that advantage.
Yeah, I think that they just found a spark last week offensively, and like their offense has not been dominant this year. You know, they have a great defense and they're just physical as hell. They run the ball well and 2 really good running backs, and they score enough to win the game because their defense is really good. And now that I think they found a little spark offensively, it's like, oh shit, like maybe that lets the defense play a little bit more free because we know we're going to score a little bit more points, or at least feel that way.
Right.
And with a new quarterback playing, it kind of just gives you some, like, a natural spark, like I've just said a million times. But I think it's got the makings for a little bit of like a magical night from Bo and seeing, kind of what he can do and keeping it close. I think that confidence going into a game like this where the stigma's been you can't win the big game and, players are already on high stress, if you kind of calm them down and give them that natural confidence and try to take a little bit more off everybody's plate in that sense, I think that's when it can become an advantage for Penn State. But you make a good point.
Well, and I think another reason why I lean Ohio State like that too is there's a scenario where I see Ohio State blowing them out.
Yeah, no doubt. I do too.
There's a scenario where I see that. There's a scenario where I see Ohio State winning a close game.
Yes.
There's a scenario where I see Penn State winning a close game.
Yeah.
There's not a scenario where I see Penn State blowing Ohio State out.
No, I think it's like if I had to put it in percentage, it's like 10% Penn State wins a close game, like 70% Ohio State wins a close game, and then there's like a good 20% where Ohio State could like win like 49-3. Like where you just stop watching after the halftime. You're like, oh well, that game sucked.
I agree big time. And now I've been a coach in college football, but the highest I made it was a quarterback coach. So I didn't have influence over game planning. Then I went and coached high school football, and then I had full influence and full autonomy. And something that I really benefited from and something that I believe in deeply is asking yourself how this team that you're playing beats you. How do they beat us? Right? And I think the scenarios are far less for Penn State to win the game when you think of it that way, as opposed to Ohio State, to your point, okay? But where I wanted to finish this was, tell me what the game looks like if Penn State is 8-0 coming out of this game on Saturday. What does that game look like to you?
Yeah, I think the defense gets an early turnover, and Penn State goes up 7-0 early, and that place is rocking. Yeah. And I think Penn State somehow plays really well on defense and makes Ohio State struggle. And I think the offense converts some like crazy 3rd and 4th downs. And Bo is going to have to run for like 100 yards and make some plays with his feet. And just kind of, have make some plays with his feet to keep that game alive. That's the only way I really think that happens. I think if the Penn State wins, it's going to be because their defense turned Ohio State over, and Bo made some unbelievable conversions with his feet.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and I think, as you think about it, I don't think that Penn State's offense is going to play better than Ohio State's offense.
No,
I
I
don't
don't
think so.
No.
So you're going to have a lights out football game from your defense.
Yeah.
You're going to have the advantage in special teams.
Yep.
You're going to have
be
to
like a
have
block kick or a return or something. Yeah.
you're going to have the advantage on touchdowns in the red zone.
Yeah.
When you do get into the red zone, it's not threes, you get a couple of sevens.
Yeah.
And so just circumstantially, and this is why, I think Ohio State's a 4-point favorite. If Ohio State was in the horseshoe, that means they'd be favored by 7 points.
At least, yeah.
That's significant. That's not, Penn State is I think they're the higher ranked team right now in the country.
Probably because
I mean, we know what that shit means, but it is. Let's see. Let's finish it with that. It's Ohio State 4th and Penn State 3rd, and Ohio State is favored on the road at Penn State. So, Mitch, what was your score?
I'm going 24. Yeah, I'll stick with 24-20 Ohio State.
24-20 Ohio State. He changed his 24-21 to 24-20 because he knows that Vegas looks like Vegas for a reason.
I honestly didn't even consider that. Actually, I just was thinking Penn State's gonna score one less touchdown in the red zone, kick another field goal.
I love it.
I didn't even think about the 4. I am Vegas.
Yeah. Well, then start putting your money where your mouth is, dude.
Yeah, right.
I'm sticking with 24-14. 24-14. But that's my guy. That's my former head coach. He's such a damn good football coach. And, they've won double-digit games for fucking 7 years in a row. So I desperately hope that he can win the football game because he then becomes one of the best 3 or 4 coaches in all of college football.
Of course.
And right now that narrative, watch. They're down 10-0 in the second quarter. Type in James Franklin on Twitter and watch what's going down. So, Coach, I love you. I think you can do it, but I think you guys are going to have to play lights out and be nice and loose with your quarterback this week. Mitch, anything else for him?
No, I party hat what you just said. Yeah, I second that.
All right, let's do it. Drop your scores in the comments. Love to see that. And let us know what you thought about this style of this week and us not going with the hour-long breakdown of just summaries of every game and kind of getting into the weeds. But, Mitch, I love every Sunday I ever get the opportunity to spend with you. We talk about it's Church 2.0 for us. And I love you, dude. And I'll see you next week.
I love you, brother. Appreciate you.